William had always been the type of man who couldn't resist a mystery. His detective-like curiosity often led him to poke his nose into things that most people would avoid. He was fascinated by the world around him, always eager to unravel the secrets hiding in plain sight. But no mystery had ever gripped him quite like the one living next door. Ruby. Ruby was a strange woman who kept entirely to herself. She had moved into the neighborhood months ago, but no one knew a thing about her. She rarely left her house, and when she did, she wore oversized dark sunglasses and a scarf wrapped tightly around her head. The house itself didn't help ease anyone's curiosity either. It was old, decrepit, and gave off an unsettling aura. Vines curled around its walls like skeletal hands, and the windows were always covered with thick, dusty curtains. William's attempts to talk to Ruby had been futile. Each time he approached her, she would either vanish inside her house or give him the coldest, shortest reply possible before turning away. But this only fueled William's obsession. Who was Ruby? What was she hiding in that creepy old house? One evening, as he sat by his window, his eyes fixed on Ruby's house, an idea began to form. He had to know what was going on inside. No one would tell him. No one seemed to care, but he cared. His curiosity gnawed at him like a persistent itch. He decided he would break into her house that night under the cover of darkness. When the clock struck midnight, William put on his dark coat, grabbed a flashlight, and quietly slipped out of his home. The air was cold, and a thick fog clung to the ground as if trying to obscure the path ahead. With each step toward Ruby's house, his heart pounded a little harder, but he wasn't afraid. He was excited. He crept up to the front door, his pulse racing. The door was surprisingly unlocked. William pushed it open slowly, the creak of the hinges loud in the eerie silence of the night. He stepped inside, immediately hit by a damp, musty smell. The air was thick, almost suffocating. The house was dark, save for a faint glow coming from a room deeper inside. As he moved further into the house, his flashlight beam swept over strange old furniture covered in dust, and paintings of unsettling figures hung crooked on the walls. It felt as though the house itself was watching him. He followed the faint glow to what appeared to be a living room, but what he saw inside made his blood freeze in his veins. In the middle of the room, standing tall in the dim light, was not Ruby, but a ghostly figure with a grotesquely elongated neck, twisting and swaying like a serpent. Its head hovered high above its body, its hollow eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. The ghost's face was contorted in a permanent expression of anguish, its mouth open wide as though caught mid-scream. William's breath hitched in his throat. He wanted to run, but his legs felt rooted to the spot, his body paralyzed with terror. The long-necked figure turned its head towards him, the neck bending and twisting unnaturally like a snake sensing its prey. Its glowing eyes fixed on him, and a low, haunting wail filled the air, making the walls of the house seem to shiver in response. Then, as the figure began to glide toward him, its long neck stretching even further, William snapped out of his terror. He stumbled backward, tripping over a chair as he scrambled to get out of the room. He bolted for the front door, his heart hammering in his chest. As he reached the doorway, a cold gust of air swept through the house, and a voice, low and eerie, whispered through the darkness. "She is not who you think she is." He dashed outside, slamming the door behind him and running all the way back to his house, panting and trembling. For the rest of the night, he locked every door and window, his mind racing. What had he seen? And more importantly, what did it mean? The next day, Ruby's house remained as silent and foreboding as ever, but William couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him, waiting. He knew he had uncovered something far darker than he could ever have imagined, and now the house and whatever lived inside seemed to know him too. From that night on, strange things began to happen. William would hear soft whispers through the walls of his home, and at night, when the moon was full, he would catch glimpses of a tall, shadowy figure with an impossibly long neck in the corners of his vision, lurking just beyond the fog. The mystery of Ruby's house wasn't just an obsession anymore. It had become a haunting, one that William could never escape.